So good to be together in this portal of opulence, Andrew.
Always a pleasure to be with you, dear.
Cheers. The law of opulence, the law of infinite supply.
It's be nice to start off with sharing some of those definitions, because I think they really create a nice entry point.
Such a nice entry point. I was guided to some of them, and the first one by Ralph Waldo Trine. Opulence is the law of the universe, an abundant supply for every need if nothing is put in the way of its coming. It's a law. And Deepak Chopra, all the roads lead to Deepak, especially if you're in California. Affluence, unboundedness, and abundance, our natural state. We need only to restore the memory of what we already know. Yeah, beautiful.
Very different than how people perceive opulence. And as you were saying earlier, when you first searched for a definition, they were all tied to material abundance.
To the external display of your wealth. As opulence, as a definition, somebody is so rich that they just can't help but show it off. Ton of cars, watches, all of that, fine fabrics. But that's just one layer of definition of opulence. And we wanted to expand that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Think in terms of a being like Jesus, who is just opulent in spirit, opulent in wisdom.
His world, his entire inner world was overflowing with opulent consciousness. That's where I would love to expand this conversation, what it truly means to have an opulent consciousness, where you are the field of opulence. It's elegance, it's overflow, it's this ongoing fountain of creative riches. And you are naturally generous with that because it just keeps on coming, it keeps flowing through you.
Yes. That the notion of my cup is full and runneth over. It's the epitome of abundance and the complete opposite of scarcity, as if somehow your giving or your radiation could somehow run out.
Yes, exactly. The cup overflowing, living from the overflowing cup opens up so many possibilities. I find, to me, opulence is another term for an ongoing expansion, ongoing beautification of everything around me. Because beauty heals the world, beauty nourishes spirit, beauty nourishes the heart.
Yes.
Yeah. When we met, we quickly realized that we both value beauty, elegance, and opulence.
Yes.
Right? As a physical manifestation of that inner consciousness, right? When the consciousness is flowering within, it expresses as a flowering without.
Yes.
That's what I see. Yeah, but neither one of us have been born into opulence or been around it, right?
That's right.
Okay, I'm curious your journey, Andrew.
Yeah, so my journey is, my father was what we call in America a blue collar worker.
Blue collar.
And we had 6 children. And so my father had to work 2 full-time, blue collar jobs to support the support the family. And we lived in an area that had a great diversity from blue collar workers like my father to very affluent people, and many of which who were my friends. And what I noticed was that my friends always wanted to be at my house. And my house was not in the sense of grand opulence at all. It was a very simple place, and they lived in these, opulent places. But my mother created this environment of seeing you for who you were and allowing you to feel accepted in a way that other people had never made somebody feel, before. And that's where I first started to get my notion of maybe opulence has qualities of the spirit.
Yes. Oh, I love that so much. Yeah, I love that so much. Opulence has qualities of the spirit.
When because there were 6 children, and because we had a 3-bedroom house, it was hard to have your own room. And when I became a teenager, I asked if I could go down and turn the basement of my house into my room. And because my father had a gardening company, and so we would do the gardening, mowing of the lawns and caring of the shrubbery for fairly wealthy people. And I was amazed at the things that these people would throw away. And so I used to love with my dad to ride through the neighborhood of our customers on trash day to see what they were throwing away. And I furnished my entire basement. The first thing, it was my first experience with a Persian carpet. And this was a giant Persian carpet, maybe like 16 by 18, a very, very large, very beautiful Persian carpet that somehow maybe somebody had left a plant on the corner of it, so the corner of it rotted, so they were throwing it away. So I rolled up this Persian carpet, threw it in the back of my father's truck, and that became the base, at which I was building my opulence, in my bedroom. And here I have this fabulous, Persian carpet. And then I would take these old wine bottles and I would put candles on them and then just burn the candles and build these candle mountains. The next thing you know, my place turned into like this little temple of all things that people had cast away. So opulence in expression doesn't require wealth. It requires an appreciation of beauty and seeing it in the most unique places. When I was a monk, we lived in the simplest of places, but I would find my opulence. I would walk through nature and I'd find the most beautiful branches or leaves or ferns, and I would just decorate, my little monk's quarters with these beautiful, beautiful things of nature. And people would come in and go, "Oh, this is so beautiful." And now, of course, you have been to, one of my homes, and it's a very opulent, in that sense of the word. It's a very, opulent home. I'm no happier in that house than I was in my little monk's quarters, because wherever I am, I'm expressing beauty and creativity at whatever form and whatever level it's accessible to me. And whatever that is, my cup is full and runneth over. So you could take away, the 2 mansions that I have today, and you could put me in a 1-room place, and it will not change my level of contentment. And it might not look like the grand pieces of art that I have, but it will have an opulence in its own realm that's fitting for the, for the situation.
So what stood out for me when you said, I had an eye for opulence? So it's something anyone can choose to develop. It's the eye for beauty, where you see beauty and you look for beauty. Even that begins to accelerate the refinement of your consciousness, right? Beauty
Yes.
begins to polish your consciousness. So an eye for opulence, it feels like a tool, a technique, a way of being. I can relate to the Andrew. When I was born and raised in Soviet Union in the city called Vladivostok, which, if we didn't have those really stoic looking cement building from the communist era, it would be a lovely town. There's some hills. On the good days, looks like San Francisco, but on the rainy, foggy, gray day with those cement buildings that looks like, somebody just put them together in one day, very little beauty. I remember my soul was craving beauty, and I would go on walks, and just like you said, I would look for any kind of glimpse of beauty because it would nourish my soul. And even though that environment wasn't filled with opulence, I trained my mind to look for glimpses for it. And it helped me so much in every aspect of my life, because I remember when I came here as an immigrant with a few dollars to my name, what helped me progress and access better opportunity is this ability to see beauty in others and to see people, right? And to welcome people. Even when I was one of my jobs in Alaska, I was a cashier. I was working in the gift store, and I was so enthusiastic. Anybody who would visit my corner, I was like, hi, this is a great ornament that you picked. Amazing. So I was fully in, genuinely, authentically sparkling for people. It only took a month before a partner of that shop saw me on the floor and talked to his partner. He's like, who is that kid over there selling ornaments? If she sells ornaments like this, she better sell diamonds at my store. So next summer, he invites me and he says, please come and be my salesperson, and I teach you how to sell diamonds. So that is such a powerful ability to cultivate. Be the spark of opulence yourself, cultivate an eye of opulence, and that ability to see it in others, right? It's an eye for beauty. It's quality of consciousness. And I feel like it's so important that we're starting there, because we can never create what we are not able to become. So if we desire to create opulence, we get to start opening our hearts and our consciousness to it, and see it as a spiritual dimension of life that is available to anyone who is willing to develop an eye for opulence.
Yes, it is so beautiful. What you said when you touched upon, we can only become, what we are. The frequency at which we resonate is what attracts to us that like matter. So if we live in this identity of scarcity, that is what we project, out into the world, and that is what we see. We're always, you can be in a state of scarcity and you want more, but you're always reaching for something that you can't reach. I mean, the best way I think I could describe it is, for those of you that still listen to radio, if you were to turn your radio dial to tune in to, and you turned it into a station that reached country western music, you're going to listen to country western music. And then you could say to yourself, I'm not really somebody who likes to listen to country western music. I like progressive jazz. But your dial's tuned in to country western music, so that's all you're able to receive. So until you turn the dial, into what it is you want, you can't have it. And that's the secret of abundance. That's the secret of opulence, is immersing yourself in what it is that you love. And when that happens, you immediately stop trying to do a million different things. And you start saying, I'm going to do a few things, and I'm going to do those few things really well. I'm going to give it my heart. I'm going to give it my soul. I'm going to study and learn everything that there is to learn about it. I'm going to become the best that I could be at it. And so you start to be like a shining example of what is possible for what it is that you love. And that's what creates opulence.
Ooh. 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 And there is a cosmic law of opulence. We started with a lovely quote, a cosmic law, like gravity, right? Like a sun will rise and the sun will set, a cosmic law that says that you can create it, you can attune to it, you can align to it. And it all starts with appreciating what is possible when you become a bringer of beauty. With every moment that you engage, you say, well, what's possible if I make this moment more beautiful, right? More beautiful, more elegant, more warm. I had such a similar natural inclination, Andrew, to decorate every space that I lived, to turn it into a temple, because it would elevate my soul, and not only my soul, but everybody who would be attracting to my temple, right? So then it becomes, your environment becomes the field of transformation. And it's so nourishing, it's inspiring, it's inviting what will be possible. So opulence is a quality of consciousness, and then bringing that into every creation, right? Everything I create, how can I infuse this energy of opulence? Because it's simply who I am. It's in alignment with who I am.
Yes. You know, we've all been in other people's homes, and when you walk in, you immediately feel a sense of connection and comfort. And it has nothing to do with how grand, the house is, because we've all had the opportunity to walk into very grand places that have no soul. It's, somebody hired an interior designer who went into a showroom and said, oh, I love that whole living room set, and I love that whole thing, and just drop it, into my house. And so it physically might be pleasing to the eyes, but the soul senses this deep sense of, where's the person's connection? Is this a reflection, of that person? And when you start to take the idea of decorating your home or your work environment to, I want to put things in it that really speak to me, that resonate to me, that make me feel good, that I look at it and it just makes me feel, I love that. Or it reminds me of a place that I had been, where I got it, or the story, or who had made it. And so our homes become an artistic display of things that we really love. And that's what you can make your home. That's what you can make your office. In my home, and again, Katerina is been there, and every place you look, there's something really special. But every one of those things has a very special meaning to me. It spoke to me in the deepest way. The artist who created it spoke to me in the deepest way. The colors, the orientation, the arrangement of it. It's all this deep connected passion. It's just not there. And it's just not there for the practical reason of what it does. It's there for how I connect to it and how it makes my soul feel.
Oh, Andrew, and you and I both have high appreciation of art. I see you investing into art. This to me is a mirror into your values, right? I surround myself with art. I'm curious, how does art make you feel more opulent?
I think we fall in love with a piece of art that expresses something in us, that makes us feel a sense of joy, that makes us feel a sense of passion. So if there's this deep appreciation, for what this person created, it's a way of honoring their journey. It's, wow, this journey created this beautiful, beautiful piece. And so you're honoring that artist and you're honoring your guests by bringing that into your, into your home or office. And again, it has nothing to do with what your budget is.
Yes.
You can find magnificent beauty. I mean, the early places when I left the monastery and did my first home with my wife, we created shelves from cement blocks that we painted, and then painted these beautiful Chinese symbols, and then simple pieces of wood for our shelves. And we would go to thrift stores, we would find garage sales, and we would find these magic little things, that just created such beauty. And again, they weren't extravagant by any means, but they were beautiful to us.
And there was a natural desire to create with your hands, to create beauty, right?
Yes.
That is something a lot of times in our Western, very results oriented, achievement focused society, the time to create, we postpone that when I have time on my next vacation, right? Comparing to, you go to a culture like Bali, right? Where creating beauty is a form of spiritual practice.
Yes.
It's how opulent is that culture? To me, Bali feels very spiritually opulent, because beauty is revered, beauty is valued. So I love that you named that. It's incredible. Creating beauty.
So let's talk about the source of opulence.
The source of opulence.
And how one connects to the power that creates opulence in what you do. So during my monastic study years, I dove very deep into all of the world's traditions. And I would look for what I called these hacks, or these parables that the Buddha shared or Jesus shared, that just gave witness to an awakening to this message that completely changed you and brought you to a different state of consciousness. So if we take some of the things that Jesus left us with, he said, "Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all else will follow." And I meditated on that for years, about what is the depth? What does that really, really mean? Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all else will follow. So instead of thinking about all of the things that you want, how about thinking about a state of being that fills you with so much joy, with so much peace, with so much passion, with so much creativity, that then anything that you do has that signature to it. Whereas most people reverse it. They think, I'm going to go out and create all of these things, and then those things are going to make me feel safe and secure and are going to be my heaven, but they never do, because painted cakes don't satisfy hunger. Things that are of an outer nature cannot satisfy or fill things of an inner nature. So what else did Jesus say about that? He said, store not your treasures where moths can corrupt, where rust can corrupt it, or where thieves can break in and steal. And what in essence he was talking about is those things that we in our society deem our treasures. We deem our treasures as things that we have gathered, possessions that we have gathered. Those are our treasures. And by nature, we're putting our comfort in things that are impermanent in nature,
Mm.
because rust will corrupt them, and moths will eat them, and thieves will steal them. Economies go up and down. You can't hold on to things that are of themselves of a temporal nature. And then you begin to say, if these are my treasures,
Mm.
then instead of even fully enjoying them, the enjoyment is replaced by the fear that they're going to be gone. And what will your life be, without it? And so what was he saying? Where was he saying to store your treasures? Well, how about storing your treasures in your connection to the creative process and the inspiration that allows you to draw to you what you need to be able to create what you need to sustain yourself and to continue to do what you love. Now that is where you should store your treasures, because nobody can take that from you. Nobody can take your connection to the infinite. Nobody can take your connection to the creative forces of the universe. And if you believe that no matter what your circumstance is, you have the ability to reach out in your environment, to reach out to other people in circumstances and find a meaningful way to serve other people in a way that they're going to value enough so they'll pay you so you can continue to do what you love. And that is what heaven is. Now, you can expand that to any level. The greater your service, the greater that it's valued, the more that comes to you. You can then expand the notion of that. So it can go wherever you could like it to go, or it can be complete at the simplest of levels. It's up to you. But that is, if you want opulence, find your kingdom of heaven, within you. And that presence, that connection to it, everything you do will carry that signature of beauty. That's opulence.
Aho, brava, oh, delicious and divine. Wow, really felt that with all my soul, that following your creative spark. To me, creativity is opulence,
Yes.
Andrew, right? That we have such a unique gift to unlock our creative spring within until it becomes a river and the fountain and the ocean of creativity that never runs out. To me, this was actually the number one way I was able to dissolve the inherited scarcity poverty consciousness from Soviet Union, where anything could be collapsed and you don't know what tomorrow brings. There was this process where I kept cultivating my creativity. I kept following my inspiration, kept finding my way of taking an idea from idea plane and diligently turning into cloaking it into a matter, turning it to service or product, right? Then I realized ideas just keep coming and they're just getting better. And I keep acting on them and they just keep coming. And I was like, I don't think this fountain within ever gonna run out. I think it's just gonna be here to stay. And the one signature that have been assisting me with that, the frequency that you named, for me was generosity. Generosity, like sharing your ideas, sharing your warmth, sharing your inspiration, knowing that the more you share, the more you create space to receive more. And I intuitively came to that realization. There is a fountain within called Fountain of Creativity, and it never runs out when you let it flow, right? If you keep it to yourself, the water will begin to do what? Stagnate, right? Like when the water doesn't move, it stagnates. So there is this principle of opulence, of creative opulence, is generosity and flow. And that's, to me, as a creative being, I found that true inner freedom that doesn't come from the outside. It comes from me knowing that every resource exists within as a potential. And that potential will always surprise me. In a new way, it will bloom.
Yes.
It blooms in a new way, right?
Yes.
There is this beautiful way of creating beauty. But you and I follow the path of beauty. And the result of that is opulence as a way of what manifests in our reality. as a natural result.
Yes. And I think one of the, and this is something that you and I share as well, one of the things that people most value and are so willing to give you their support is when you see beauty in them.
Yes.
And you nurture beauty in them. You know, in our society, people feel so unseen. They feel so unheard. And the greatest gift that you can give to another person is to take a moment and really see them and really hear them. And when you do that for them, it's something that they never, ever forget. And the appreciation that you get back from them is a reflection of the opulence that we're talking about. This is the opulence of being in a relationship. How to be opulent in a relationship? See that other person's beauty, nurture that other person's beauty, encourage that other person's beauty, and you are creating opulence in them. Again, we get so distracted by the modern interpretation of opulence as all being, you know, material wealth and showiness. For my parents, you know, opulence was creating a safe place for their children and their children's friends where they could always come and feel safe and feel heard. I mean, my father would come home from work in between jobs, and here he is killing himself, you know, to keep food on the table for 6 children. And he'd come home and there's 5 other kids, you know, at the table that my mother's feeding. And then that night, when it's time to go to sleep, there's 3 sleeping bags rolled out in the living room because these kids were having problems at home where their parents just were not, you know, understanding them. And you'd think that, you know, if my father was a man of scarcity, he would come home and he'd say to my mother, I'm killing myself. I'm trying to feed this family and you keep adding more people to the table. My father would walk in the door and just smile at everybody at the table and say, oh, you know, welcome to my home.
That's
opulence. My father was the simplest of men, would never buy anything for himself. Very different person than me when you come into my house and I have all of this physical opulence I have as well. My father was an opulent man of spirit, a simple being that just radiated, I'm here to serve.
The generosity, opulence of spirit. I love that he would greet everyone with a smile, right? Welcome to my home. Opulence to me also feels nourishing. True opulence feels nourishing. It's one thing to create a space of opulence for yourself alone. It's another thing to share, right? And I had an insight recently that I grew up on a Pacific Ocean, just the other side of the Pacific Ocean in Russia. And I made all this trek and this heroine journey of my own journey to find my own slice of Eden, Garden of Eden in California, and created it. And one of my most favorite things is to share that little garden, this opulent of beauty, to share with others. Because to me, that's the essence. It's you, through creating opulence field environments, you nourish others. You create a space, what Ram Dass would say, you create a space for people to come up for air. Right? And we all have those chapters. We get fatigued in our path. We cross some deserts, right? We maybe swim in the fogs of confusion. And when you are invited to a space where you can come up for air and connect to beauty and be nourished and be seen, wow, it will fuel you to finish that journey that you are traveling currently. That, to me, that's another sign of opulence. Yes. Nourishing space for people to come up for air.
Yes. And you know, there are endless circumstances that life provides for that. And all that requires is being present. And we're very rarely present. We're typically thinking about what happened and going through the, you know, the story of it, or we're thinking about what it is that's going to happen next. And in the course of that, there are 1,000,001 things that were right in front of our eyes that we could have been present for, that we could have brought opulence into the situation, but we were so caught up in ourselves and serving ourselves that we missed the opportunity. I often like to talk about, just the opportunity. You talked about being, at a cashier. One of my favorite things to do when I'm at the grocery store or anywhere when I'm standing in line is to observe, the cashier and find something about them that when it comes my time to look them in the eye, that I can say something that's a compliment. Like, that blouse looks so beautiful, with your eyes. Or I saw the way that you smiled at that older woman there and was so patient with her, in checking her out. You can make a difference in somebody's moment that could be a highlight of their day for all that you know. And there's countless opportunities in a given day for us to do it, and we just miss it. We're just walking right by. And what we don't realize is it's not just about me serving other people. It's the art of the greatest joy comes in giving to others and feeling the impact that you made, in their life. And we miss that. We rob ourselves of those opportunities, thinking that we're going to be happy if we just keep chasing after what we want and focusing on what we want, and I'll be happy when this happens. So we're always putting up our happiness in the future, and there's 1,000,000 opportunities in front of us to just appreciate. So this morning, I was out on my patio, and I was really enjoying my gardens. And then I looked down and I could see in the crack of my patio, there was this sprouted seed, growing up. And I thought, wow, think about what that seed had to go through to find its way through the crack in the cement, to break free enough to be able to receive the moisture and get a little bit of sunlight, so that it could grow. And yet here are all these other plants that I put in my garden, that I put in all the fertilizer, and the gardener's coming every week and, and pulling the weeds out around it. And yet the will to just live and survive and express yourself and find your way to the sun is just inherent in all of us. And no matter how difficult the situations are, the seed can sprout, and the seed can find its way to the sun. The seed can find the little bit of nourishment, that it needs to live and thrive.
Wow. Well, you have just experienced the opulent richness of this conversation. We just opened the door. We weave the few threads. What opulence is from consciousness perspective, from the way of being, as you cannot create what you have not become just yet. So I love diving into one of the first conversations about opulence as a frequency that we can all attune, discover, cultivate, and embody. This was a brilliant opening, Andrew.
Yeah, so what's to come is Katerina and I are very excited about creating some online courses for you that will really help you to embrace the mechanics of opulence.
The how, yes.
Yes, the art and science of becoming opulent.
Woo! So divine and opulent. So stay tuned. We are so excited to bring more, and then to share from the place of this divine inspiration as we're tapping into the law of opulence, a law of abundance. The art and science of becoming opulent. We will continue to enjoy our tea. Thank you for joining us. And until next.
We'll be back.